I'm Michael Joseph, chairman of the Return of the Red Tails Racing Organization. We periodically put on Tuskegee Airmen programs in this region, of which I am the Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated representative for the Claude B. Gauvin chapter. It is a pleasure for me to share with you today my dear friend, Second Lieutenant Herbert Thorpe. Herb wanted to be with us today, however passed suddenly as we prepared for this event.
Conditions, they flew with unmatched valor, completing over 1,500 missions and destroying or damaging numerous enemy aircraft. Their success in these missions was not just a series of military victories, it was a profound statement of capability and excellence that challenged the prejudiced perceptions of African American servicemen. The Red Tails proved that bravery, skill, and determination know no color. They protected the bombers they escorted with such tenacity that they became known for having one of the lowest loss records of all escort fighter groups. This was a victory abroad, a triumph over the Axis powers, a demonstration of unmatched aeronautical skill, and a beacon of hope for freedom and justice worldwide. Victory at home meant challenging and dismantling the systemic racism that permeated American society. The Tuskegee Airmen's exemplary service played a crucial role in the eventual desegregation of the U.S. Armed Forces. President Harry S. Truman's Executive Order 9981 in 1948, which mandated the integration of the armed forces, was a direct response to the undeniable contributions of African American servicemen like the Red Tails. Their courage and excellence provided a powerful argument against the racial segregationist policies that had long plagued the military and the nation. Victory at home and abroad, as exemplified by the Red Tails, means achieving the excellence and integrity in the face of adversity. It means proving one's worth through actions and character despite systemic obstacles. It means breaking barriers and paving the way for future generations. The legacy of the Tuskegee Airmen is a testament to what can be achieved when courage, skill, and unwavering commitment to justice converge. Today, as we honor these heroes, let us remember that their victories have not only shaped history, but continue to inspire us to strive for a world where equality, justice, and excellence prevail. Their story is not just a chapter in our past, it is a beacon lighting our path toward a more just and equitable future. Thank you. This gentleman was supposed to be our keynote speaker, but we were fortunate that despite his untimely passing at the beginning of this year, we had the good fortune, thanks to Michael Joseph, to have a video address made by the late, great Lieutenant Herbert Thorpe, a Tuskegee Airman. And at this time, we'll be broadcasting that video message for you all to see.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
I'm Michael Joseph. A lot of you know me. Thank you for coming. At this time, I would like for family members of the Tuskegee Airmen to please stand. And please join us at the front table. Herbert Thorpe, Second Lieutenant Herbert Thorpe, he was a good friend of mine. He and I met 20 years ago at a funeral for a dear friend. And yes, as Don mentioned, we're going to be just showing you some of the details of various interviews that we had with him, including the very last video that was taken of him on December 20th. So Herbert Thorpe is 100 years old in this opening video that you'll see. Here is the last recorded interview of Herbert Thorpe that we did on December 20th, 2023. But first, some comments from former Executive Director Michael Hall.
Good morning and welcome to the Wings of Eagles Discovery Center. I'm retired Air Force General Mike Hall and I serve as chair of the Discovery Center. It's our pleasure and honor to host you once again to pay tribute to our remarkable Tuskegee Airmen. I was fortunate to have known a number of airmen and called them friends. We had many meetings over the years and I learned a great deal personally from them as they also helped me professionally in my Air Force career. The seminal moment for me was in the 1980s. The Air Force had been through a good bit of civil strife in the 60s and had instituted a program called Social Actions to try to improve the human climate in the service. While this was a well-meaning program, it was not well received by fighter pilots. Let me tell you, you can tell a fighter pilot, but you can't tell them much. So I was frustrated because having been very active in civil rights since the 60s, I wanted progress in my wing that I wasn't getting. And I needed help. So I reached out to the Tuskegee Airmen, who I knew casually at that point, and was connected with Lee Archer and Roscoe Brown, two of our amazing airmen. They had a record really of unparalleled accomplishment during World War II. Lee was the first black pilot to shoot down 5 airplanes to become an ace, but he was only credited with 4.5 because the country wasn't ready to have a black person succeed at that level. Fortunately, later on, the Air Force reviewed his case and he was assigned the status of ace as he richly deserved. But, you know, when he came home from World War II, he told me he came down the gangplank and got to the bottom and there was a sign, you know, whites to the right, color to the left. And he thought, my goodness, things really haven't changed since I've been gone. I don't think he was right about that. I think his heroic actions planted a seed that's been growing ever since. And it's a seed that takes us on a journey all societies have. It's not an easy or a destination kind of a thing. It's something we have to continually work on. And we use the memory of Lee and Roscoe to help us do that. Like Lee, he came back after the war and became very involved in New York City society and philanthropic causes. And Roscoe became president of Bronx Community College for several decades, while Lee went on into industry and was a successful leader and CEO. Well, they came up to Syracuse at my request and met with the pilots. And you could have heard a pin drop for the 2 hours that they talked about their experiences, because fighter pilot to fighter pilot, there was a communication across difference and a common understanding that wasn't there with your typical classroom social actions teacher. So the message got across, and the message was, you know, how much they love this country in spite of the many things that had been done to them by fellow citizens that were harmful, how their patriotism took them to World War II, how their skill made them exceptionally successful at their mission. And this all resonated with the group of pilots. When they left, there's a sea change in the room. And from that point on, the pilots understood something they hadn't understood previously, and they were committed. And when the pilots are committed, then the rest of the wing is committed. So thanks to the Tuskegee Airmen, we made great strides in the business of diversity and inclusion. Warfare, look, no one of us makes as good a decision as a group of us can. And unless we have a diverse group and include their views, our decision-making will not be as valuable as it otherwise would. So my mantra is simple. Diversity provides opportunity, and inclusion leverages opportunity into prosperity. I hope you'll agree. I hope you'll help us support the Airmen's mission and contribution going forward. Good luck, Godspeed, and have a memorable Memorial Day weekend.
So what would you tell young people today?
Well, how to get our young people excited about having a goal of something that they really would like to do, and finding a way to set a plan to reach that goal, because that's where the change is going to come. When you become someone who can hire someone to do what you used to do, that's where you're going to be successful.
Young Lieutenant Thorpe was instructed in gunnery on a B-17 four-engine heavy bomber.
Decided to curl up inside the turret with the guns between the knees and learn how to maneuver the turret back and forth. And the B-17 was heavily armed. They had a belly turret, a top turret, and a tail turret, and a nose turret, because they had to defend themselves when they went into enemy territory. After I passed my gunnery training, I was sent back to Tuskegee. And from Tuskegee, now I was sent to Midland Field in Texas to begin bombardier navigator training, because I was going to be trained as a twin-engine pilot eventually. I passed the bombardier navigator, and at the end of my bomb nav training, the group that went through that training, we were commissioned at Midland Airfield, December 1944. I received my commission, second lieutenant. Nowhere to go would send us but back to Tuskegee, because the Army at that time would not integrate flight crews. So there was no place for us to go. They sent us back to Tuskegee. So I returned to Tuskegee in the early 45. And then I began what they call advanced flying training. They had set up a classes for twin-engine pilots. That's what I trained in this aircraft here. It's a B-25. And I qualified as a B-25 pilot. It was during the training period at Tuskegee Advanced Flying that I heard of the passing of my brother. I only saw him once.
Yeah.
He had been to Tuskegee. He went through all three stages, and after advanced training, his advanced flying training, he was qualified as a combat fighter pilot. And those pilots were sent to pre-combat training in Walterboro, South Carolina. The last time I saw my brother was he had flown back to Tuskegee in a P-40 aircraft, a trainer, because they had front and back seat. Ordinarily, the P-40 only has one pilot, but the training aircraft had a front seat and a back seat. And I flew with, my brother said, "Come on, I'm going to take you up and we're going to fly around in the P-40. I couldn't believe the P-40 was going to get off the ground. It had tin sides and a tin floor. I said, "This thing is not going to fly." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I'm going to fly it." And he took me up and they did all kinds of maneuvers. I said, "This plane's coming apart." I said, "No." He brought me back down and landed. And we spent, I think we had dinner together at Tuskegee Institute. And he got on the bus and went back to Walterboro, went back to South Carolina. That was the last time I saw him. He and President Roosevelt died within weeks of each other. President Roosevelt died in April of 1945.
Richard Thorpe's death in 1945 was difficult for the family to accept, given the War Department's limited explanation of the situation. In 2023, Herb told Michael Joseph that he was now finally at peace at the passing of his brother.
I completed my twin engine plane. I was qualified as a twin engine pilot in the fall of 1945, October 1945. Because there were a couple of classes that I had missed because I had gone back to Brooklyn. My mother passed in June of 45, so I went back to Brooklyn for my mother's service memorial. That time in 45 and late 45 and 46, they were starting to ship people out of Tuskegee because they were shutting down the cadet school. And a lot of the twin engine pilots went to Kentucky and Illinois, places like that. And some of them were assigned to 477th Bomb Group and remained at Godman Field. And it was there, of course, you may have heard of the Godman Field Mutiny, that those pilots refused to go to the segregated officers club.
Was that Freeman Field mutiny?
Godman Field.
Oh, they had one at
They had
Godman
one,
as well?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Godman Field, in fact, was in that other book. It's in this book also.
Mm-hmm.
And they were court-martialed, about 100 of them. Court-martialed. They lost their honorable discharges and all their retirement privileges and so
Oh,
forth.
my goodness.
And they eventually got them back over many, many years.
Yeah.
They eventually got all that returned to them, but they had lost it in the meantime. But I didn't want to go I said, I don't want to go off to Kentucky. I elected to leave the service, and I went back to Brooklyn.
You were in Alton Burton's class.
Yes, Alton Burton and I were in the same class.
Elton Burton was selected to be the lead planning engineer for the World Trade Center project. Elton Burton's improvements to the World Trade Center made it possible for it to stand long enough for tens of thousands of people to be evacuated from the area before they eventually collapsed.
It was 1945, I'm repeating the story. It was 1945 when Herbert Thorpe and when I left the Tuskegee Airmen to return to civilian life, he stayed in, but that was the last time I saw him until today. Today was the first time I've seen him in over 60 years, and he still looks the same.
That's right. You didn't know who I was until, we started talking, and he said, oh,
That might upset him. Oh, that's the car! 332 FG, 332nd Fighter Group.
Is that a Buick or a Cadillac? I think it was a Cadillac.
It's a Buick.
It's a Buick, I think.
Yep, it's a
I think
Buick.
it's a Buick.
I don't know what year it is, but he rebuilt it.
Yeah, but he's been working on that quite a while.
Fancy finish on it.
Michael Joseph considered it an honor to provide red tail top cover escort for the Thorpes and Burtons that day.
What did you think of the tour through the Corning Museum of Glass this morning?
It was a marvelous experience seeing that. And it reminded me of what we saw 7 years back in Italy. The museum they had over there, and we saw them blowing glass over there. I didn't realize that we had this up here in Corning.
What was the high point for you, Herb?
For me, it was the history of glass. I was impressed with the use of glass, over the centuries.
And the engineering building, the engineering landmark, the ribbon machine, we got a chance to see pictures of, and the International Historic Landmark.
I didn't know anything at all about the history of glass, which was very interesting to me. And the fact that some of those beautiful objects were made many, many years ago, and I'm talking back almost prehistoric times.
But this is Jessie Thorpe, and it's such a pleasure for me to see her once again. We had a dear friend, John Dove, who passed away back in 2004. John Dove was working on some technology, some wind sensing technology, something called Holodar, and we were going to test it on that vehicle. And unfortunately, he passed not 4 months before we were to unveil that car. Display right here.
Oh, yeah.
This was dedicated when the rest of the fellows came down back in 2004.
Yes.
Herbert Thorpe visited Corning Community College on November 3, 2018, and spoke of his classmate, Alton Burton.
Personally, one of my classmates, and you saw his picture in the Michael video, first lieutenant or second lieutenant, Alton Burton, just passed a couple of days ago.
Claude B. Gauvin chapter Tuskegee Airmen gathered at Pratt Institute's Memorial Chapel to pay our respects to Alton Burton.
Herb spent time talking about his education.
And I heard about the GI Bill, and I signed up for the GI Bill. And I had to take a couple of extra classes because in high school I hadn't taken some of the classes that they were required to go to engineering school. Trigonometry was one of them, and physics was the other one. So I went to school at night while I was working, and took those two and took the Regents, and I scored real high on the Regents. I got a 90 on one and a 100 on the other. And they took me into the engineering school at NYU, and I graduated from NYU in '51 with a Bachelor of Electrical Engineering. And in the meantime, I had been working at the Sperry Gyroscope Company while I was still going to school. I eventually was accepted, and I joined the engineering facility, we call it shipboard engineers, at Brooklyn Navy Yard, and that's where I worked until I heard that the Navy Yard was closing. And I wanted to get away from there, and I looked for a place. I wound up at Rome Air Development Center and became an engineer, electrical engineer at Rome Air Development Center. And I reported for work at Rome Air Development Center.
I traveled with Herb Thorpe and his family to Rome, New York. The Air Force Research Labs where Commanding General Scott Kane dedicated the Herb Thorpe Room.
Priceless. It is. Mildly what you said. It is.
I was a part of what they call the IFF, Information Friend or Foe, to develop the beacon systems that are in use right now overhead to manage the air traffic all over the world. 59 rather.
Yeah. John Dove, he
Yes.
was already there.
He was already there.
The inventor of the DVD
There were quite a
and
few
CD
other
technology.
super engineers there, Paul Simpson, John Dove, a couple of others.
Herb Thorpe shared little-known information about the Tuskegee experience.
Cadet training at Tuskegee Army Airfield, they had a cadre of African-American nurses. And there were African-American young women who were trained as pilots, but they weren't allowed to fly for the U.S. Army. They flew for the Canadian, overseas, over to England. And they ferried, they call them ferrying, but that's what they did.
Yeah.
So there were a group of African-American women that very seldom hear about.
Norm Turby, Michael Joseph, Herbert Thorpe, and Ken Twiggs, 4 men from Brooklyn, talk about their experiences as well as music of the period.
The prime, like I said, the heyday of these artists. I mean, I think Miles was born in 25. I think the biggest advantage is that you lived there. They lived there. They lived in the neighborhood.
That's right.
Louis Armstrong lived there.
That's
Thelonious Monk lived there.
Yeah.
Sonny Rollins lived. I mean, they all lived in the neighborhoods. So.
Bill Lee, the bassist who gave birth to Spike Lee, lived across the street from Fort Greene Park, across from my high school, Brooklyn Tech, where your brother went.
Yes.
I used to walk. I live in walking distance, about 10 blocks maybe of Fort Greene Park. Just go up the hill, he take our sleds up on the top of the hill, he comes sliding up.
Yeah, that was a nice place.
I understand that Spike Lee bought part of it, or owns most of it now. That's why I heard.
Talking about creativity and these artists that took something, took a medium. People hadn't heard things expressed quite that way before, but Charlie Parker did it, and John Coltrane, and Thelonious Monk, a lot of people who we listened to who were doing music differently than it had been done in the past. And the bebop era. You're talking about, that's 1940s? When would you say bebop actually began?
Yeah, bebop, 1940s. 1940s. So.
Right? And hip hop, so your generation was bebop, and I think my generation was fusion jazz.
Right.
You know, 70s.
Right.
And hip hop.
Hip hop, fusion, jazz, and
what were you into?
I was into jazz.
Yeah.
I like jazz.
Well, you're in Harlem, right? So that was kind of the epicenter in terms of I mean, what was it like when you were growing up in terms of music and your interest? And did you listen to live music or?
I had a guy next door to me who lived up in Poughkeepsey now at the time, but he used to always play this long playing music with no words to it. It was jazz. I grew up on this, just between the walls.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Herb.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norm.
Sure, Michael.
Yes, Ken.
Please.
And that is a wrap.
Of what the view would be like. There's Michael. So we can see how and where the height of the building.
Through a cloud of tire smoke.
You see Michael?
Michael's in front of us.
He's in front of us.
He's in a special car.